What's going on, guys? I've got a couple requests for videos on how I do my fireworks setup, similar to how I do this stuff. So we're going to go ahead and cover that here today. But first things first, first thing we're going to look at is the materials and tools that I use. Stay tuned. So you're going to need plywood. What I have here, see if I can get an angle. I'll go down a little lower. I have basically 1/2 inch plywood on the bottom, and on the top is 1/4 inch plywood. Now, the 1/2 inch on the bottom is to give you structural rigidity and integrity to hold all the cakes that are going to be going on. And then 1/4 inch plywood on the top. Then I just use a bolt nut and 2 of these large washers on all 4 corners to clamp the 2 together. Well, the 1/4 inch plywood on the top is going to give you your adhesive surface, and it also adds a little bit of structural rigidity. Now I've cut these into 2 feet, so they are 2 feet wide, here to here, and then the length is 4 feet, so here down to here. And then I can carry these boards individually. It makes the weight more manageable when you're trying to carry these to your launch site. So that's the first thing I need. Basically plywood. You don't have to do it this way, but you need some sort of adhesive surface. This here is going to be all your fuses. So I've got anything that's basically what I call instant fuse. So it takes 1/3 of a second to burn 1 foot in length, all the way up to my slow stuff, which is 30 seconds per foot. Now, you don't have to have all these different speeds and stuff. Like this one I could probably do without. This one I could do without. I really only need 30 perfect fuse, which is anywhere from 10 to 13 seconds per foot. And then basically more of like your fast fuse for hitting individual cakes, and then instant fuse down here. They call it quick fuse. Stakes of various sizes. I've got 12 inchers. I like that these ones have hooks on them. I actually repurposed these for Halloween, so these are used for fireworks and Halloween. These are other stakes that I use to help hold the board in place. That's just a rebar that I cut into 1 foot sections. Then for doing your fuse, I have, this is my favorite stuff to do for putting fuse to fuse. It's basically masking tape, but it's designed for concrete, brick and grout, so it's stronger masking tape, but it's not as aggressive as duct tape. Duct tape I just use for protecting the fuse once I get all the fuses taped together. And then these are the snippers. I use these for cutting the fuses to length. I highly suggest using snippers instead of scissors or anything like that, because this greatly cuts down on friction and a possible accident that you could have, or setting off your fuse by accident. The other thing you're going to need, mortar racks. Now I've made these wood mortar racks myself. I have a video on Facebook on how I did it, along with the lengths and everything. I try to make it nice and easy so that all you really need is a miter saw or even a circular saw. You don't need to do any rip cuts, which rip cuts would be lengthwise. You just have to do against the grain this way. So just cross cut. Then you're going to need your DR11 mortar tubes. These are DR11 mortar tubes. You can get these online. I got these from Pyroboom. They come with a wooden plug on the end that's already stapled in place. And these are HDPE tubes. I don't recommend running anything else other than HDPE from a safety perspective, because this is like a very elastic plastic. So if the shell does not come out of the tube for whatever reason, the bottom will just kind of mushroom out and it won't send shrapnel everywhere. You don't want a grenade. You want something that's going to absorb that explosion if everything goes wrong. So I have 90 DR11 tubes. There, I have one here. This is just another quick thing. When I do my tubes, I usually like to use X-Cals. I had 3 of these. So they come in packs of 24. And then I vary it up by putting dual layer canister shells. Every 4th shot is actually a dual layer canister shell. So it just kind of helps vary up the show a little bit. And just to touch on tubes again, because some people are like, oh, I like this type of shell and that type of shell. Really, most canister shells are pretty much the same. I like buying Excals because they come with HDPE tubes, and you can actually take these tubes and you can repurpose them so that you can make them much more like the commercial tubes that you buy. You can make your own with a little bit of work by cutting the bottom off, which I'll show in another video, and putting a plug in. Make your own tube that's only going to cost you less than 50 cents per tube, or you can spend, after shipping and handling, probably about $2.30 a tube. So that's why I usually buy Excals, because they come with these nice HDPE tubes that I'm going to repurpose. The dual layer canister shells, it's a fiberglass tube, much thinner wall. I don't run fiberglass tubes, I just throw these right in the trash. I don't trust fiberglass, and I really don't trust cardboard. So that's pretty much it for your supplies. Next I'm going to show kind of how you lay out the show in the order that you want to get it in. So the next thing you want to do for laying out your show and how you want it to display would be setting up your cakes. Now to do this, I consider a couple of different things. So when I'm setting up my cakes, I try to keep types, because some might be explosives, you know, they burst in the air, different types of brocades, whatever it be. I try to go by colors. I don't want two of the same cake kind of colors going off next to each other, because then it all looks the same and it just makes the show look a lot worse. 3 is going to be number of shots per cake. You want to vary that up, maybe have a lower shot cake that has bigger bursts. After that cake you want to have one that has a lot more shots but smaller bursts. So I like to also do that. And then last is size and intensity. And what I mean by size and intensity is how big are the cakes. Obviously I like to start off very small, and then as the show progresses and gets towards the finale, it gets bigger cakes and more intense. So size and intensity. Now how I set up my cakes, the main show I have run parallel. So if we're looking at these boards, my audience would be this way towards the smaller craftsmen here. So they're going to be way back there, and they're going to be looking at the show from this direction. There might be some people out on the lake that are going to be looking from this direction. So always keep your audience direction in mind. So what I do is I use the boards and how I fuse everything up. With the exception of the beginning, I'm going to have the fuse go like this, curve back around, come back through, hit those ones, then jump back over to this one. And then from this point out, it just goes straight down. So we hit these 4. I'll come around the fuse, wrap those, hit those, and then it's just straight down. So the rest of the show, the fuse is going to come straight down and hit all these cakes. And then it's going to go straight back down this way, all the way down, jump back over to here, come all the way over to here, come back around, jump over to here, and then it's going to go down all the way, and it stops at cats and dogs here. From cats and dogs, I call this lead in to the semi-finale. So these boards I don't run in rows. These boards I hit as a complete board. So it's going to go from cats and dogs, and it's going to immediately light these 2, because these are quite long lasting. And then I'm going to hit these guys to lead into the semi-finale. I'll time it so that these go off a little bit, maybe about 5 seconds after these ones start. So these 2 will go off. Then my fuse is going to jump over, and this is the finale board. So all this is, most of this is going to get hit at the same time. This will be hit same time, same time, same time, same time, same time. This will be a little earlier, a little earlier, a little earlier, a little earlier. Now you can use your timing of your fuses, like I showed you all the different fuses I have, to time that and get that so that it all goes off in about the order that you want it to go off in. So once you figure out where you want your cakes to go, you can kind of see it gets more intense as you go through, bigger and bigger and bigger, and then obviously really big on the end. And if I look at my cakes here, a Pyrotechnic Mother Load, if you look at that one, that is a 16-shot cake. Before that is a 20-shot. Then Mega Mojo is a 30-shot. So you can see that how I can do like number of shots. It kind of goes lower, higher, and then back to lower. This is only a 7-shot cake. Back to higher, 36 shots. So it just gives more variety to the show, different intensity bursts. Now, I also have these These are going to be going into the show, but until I have this fused up, I don't know where I'm going to insert these into the show. I believe these are probably going to be somewhere in this row. I'll put them right down here, as I'll have a separate fuse that'll jump off and then light the fuse that's going to actually snake through all of this and hit all of these mortars on all 3 racks. So that is kind of how you have to plan out your show. I mean, that's how I do mine. Obviously, you can do it whatever way you'd like, but that's how I typically plan it out. Once I have things planned out, I then pay attention to where all my fuses are, and I try and turn my cakes so all my fuses are as close together for the pairs that I want to go off. You can see that these 2 are going to go off together, then these 2, then those 2. I try and pair a 200 gram cake with a 500 gram cake so it just gives you those different layers in the air as it's shooting off. So that is pretty much it for that. Okay, so this next step is going to be prepping the cakes. So I'll show you what that entails. You have to do this to every single cake. It doesn't matter whether it's a 500 gram cake or a 200 gram cake. So what you got to do, take a good old box cutter, utility knife, drywall knife, whatever you want to call it, and you cut around the edge. Once you got the edge cut, you can go ahead and peel off the top. Now your top is exposed. Now, why do I want to cut the top off? I want to cut the top off because, one, that's going to eliminate this debris from being all over the place by the time your show is done. That's less crap that you have to pick up or less stuff that's going into the environment for pollution. So we'll get rid of this. We don't need that. I also cut the tops off because there are cakes that are fanned. There are straight shooting cakes and cakes that are fanned. What I mean by fanned is the tubes in here would be on a diagonal either like this or going the opposite way, kind of like bunny ears, I guess, like that. So with fan cakes, you want to make sure that they're fanned from the audience perspective going outwards. You don't want the fan to be in line with the camera like this. This is how the fan would look. So you can see one shot's going to go like this, the other shot's going to go way out here somewhere. So you want the fans to be like this, so that these shots go like that. So sometimes it's hard to tell if cakes are fanned, so that's why I go ahead and I cut the tops off and I confirm the cake is fanned. And I make sure I have the cake set up the right way. Most of the time, if it's a fan cake, it's going to say point this side towards spectator. Here's an example of a fan cake. This is a really great cake, by the way. It's a 200 gram cake. This is Mobile Menace by Brothers. This is my final 200 gram cake I used before I transitioned to the 350 grammers and 500 grammers. Anyway, see right here it says, see if I can get that in camera, right there, please. It says place front side towards spectators for better view. That's because this is a fan cake. Now I'll cut the top off so you can see it later on, but in this case you could either have it facing towards the spectators like this, or you could have it like this. You just can't have it like this or like this. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're fusing. Okay, so our top is now cut off. Now we got to cut off the bottom. So what we're going to do, same exact thing. Sometimes they got these little cardboard pads on the bottom. You usually don't want that there either. If it comes off, take it off. Bam. Bottom's off. So now, why did I cut the bottom off? I cut the bottom off because I'm going to take liquid nails and put it all over these cardboard tubes, which make up the bulk of the actual structural rigidity of this cake. So once I put the glue on, I can take this and I'm going to glue it onto my board down here. Now you don't want to have paper or anything like that, because I have had in the past where I left the paper on and glued it, the paper ripped off and the cake was on an angle on the board and it started to slide down, whereas the paper was still nice and glued in place, but the cake itself started to do one of these things, sliding down my board, because I shoot my boards on an angle over water. So that's the second step. At the same time, just to save time if you want, you can go ahead, find your fuse, and then you can go ahead and tear that off and then pull that down just to start prepping your fuses as well. See if that camera keeps going out of focus. So prep your fuses as well at the same time. Save yourself a little bit of time in the end. So that's the second step. I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of these cakes all the way down to all my... So we've completed the prep work for tearing off all the tops and the bottoms and prepping all the fuses. After I've done all that, this is probably overexposed here. We have the fuse right here. Fuses are here, so you just want to go through and then double check, make sure your cakes are all facing the right way that they're supposed to be facing, and that your fuses are all facing the way that you want them to be facing. And you want to be a little careful of access to fuses, because I've gotten in trouble before where it was very difficult to fuse certain cakes. So this is probably the craziest part in the beginning, just because my fuse is going to start here, go around, hit here, come around and hit here, then hit here, then go over here, 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 then here, and here, and here. So just double check that all your fuses are facing right, that you can get in there and you can work on them, you can touch them all, you can get access to them. This is kind of a little tight here, but I could still get my hand in here to work. You just don't want to have something like this, where you wouldn't be able to really get in here and work on the fuse. And that's pretty much it. That completes this step. The next step would be to glue down the cakes. Okay, now we have all of our fuses prepared, and we've got the tops cut off and we've got the bottoms exposed. We can now move on to the next step in the process, which is going to be actually gluing down the cakes. Now you want to be sure that you have your fuses in the correct orientation, so double check before you glue it down your fuses are in the right orientation. So in order to do this, especially a lot with like these 200 grammers, if you look on the bottom here, you'll see on the bottom there's a lot of orange here. This is all clay, and a lot of this likes to chip off and fall off, so you want to be careful of that as you're kind of doing this. So what I like to do is I'll move 2 or 3 cakes off the board at a time, then just take a broom, sweep it off. That way there's none of that clay on the board at all, and you got a nice good surface to glue to. And then I just use a standard issue caulk gun here, and then I use liquid nails, heavy duty construction. You just put this onto the bottom of your cake and then stick it down. So let's go ahead and take a look. Very easy. Well, here's the cake. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead, start pumping out the liquid nails. Just get it all over the cardboard area. I think I've got about 8 tubes of those liquid nails. Just get it all over your cardboard area there where the tubes are at. That's good there. Then you go ahead and put it onto your board. So again, make sure it's nice and clean. You just go ahead and stick it down. Give it a little push. That's it. You repeat this process over and over for all of your cakes because you've already prepped the bottoms. Then you just want to go ahead and you want to give this at least 24 hours to dry. Again, be very liberal with this stuff because you want to make sure this cake is glued down really well and it's not going to be going nowhere once it's dry. So let's go ahead and start gluing all these down. Okay guys, here we go. This is 3 days later. I decided to go ahead and give it 3 days because this is Michigan and we are very humid here in Michigan. So all the cakes have been glued down. So just how strong are the liquid nails for holding these down? No camera tricks here. Got our cake. That's how strong liquid nails is. That's more than a good enough method for being able to secure your cakes. So now that we are done gluing down our cakes, the next step in the process is going to be running and timing our fuses, which I will show in the next video. So if you're interested in how the fusing works, stay tuned. I've got video 2 coming out soon.